2, 1, and we should be live. Mr. McWobbles, you want to go ahead and give us the intro?
Yeah, I'd prefer if you didn't add the S on. It's either Keith or McWumble. I'll start calling you Mr. Burkoffs.
I wouldn't be mad about it if you did.
With your Tools t-shirt.
Yeah.
Hello. It's me again. Hello. You've caught me contemplating video games.
Yes.
Yes, we are the Beerumverate. We are a group of guys from SIFTDer who like talking about beer and video games. We are not here to promote drinking. Please drink responsibly. I did so last night, sort of. And please like and subscribe, and then hopefully we might actually be able to monetize this shit, and Matt can buy himself a new laptop. Any beers or breweries we might talk about aren't sponsoring us. I'm really butchering the intro this week. But if you fancy doing so, please get in touch.
It's almost like you didn't go out drinking last night. I
feel fine. It's great.
He hit the ultimate stage. He got to be next to Shane Satterfield on his left hand side, and there's nothing more he can top with it. So he just sees downhill.
Well, I got to meet Evan in real life yesterday, and as handsome as he is online, he's shorter in real life. So I take solace in his diminutive stature. And the fact that he wears undersized clothes. I mean, who does that? I mean, buy adult clothes, not children's-sized stuff. The weirdo. So, Matt, how's things in Vegas?
It's still really, really hot. So my cam's gonna be dark again because I got the shades drawn so that I don't bake to death.
Mitch, how's things in nearly Canada?
Hot. Summer. So yeah, it's going well.
Thank you very much. And we have a new guest on the show. Very pleased to have him on. Insightful bloke from comments and questions to Michael Pachter. Julian, also known as JReedVic7 on SIFTDer and Twitter. Julian, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It's an incredible honor and a privilege. That's both authentic and pleasantry, both things.
Yeah, no, it's great to have new people on. Good to know that people are watching, and good to know that people actually feel like they want to come on and talk to these three idiots, one of which is me. Right, beers this week, Matt. I feel bad. Well, actually, I don't feel bad for cutting you off last week because Shane was on one talking about his dragging kegs up mountains. But
yeah, I didn't expect quite that when he was talking about beers. So,
but you want to kick off with beers this week?
Yeah, I'm actually not drinking right now because I drank last night. You can see the results of that on my Missile Command video that I uploaded. So, drinking coffee today, but last night I was drinking Dog Pound pills from Big Dogs. And interestingly enough, another one of the beers that I picked up from them is called Peace, Love, and Happiness. And I posted a picture on Twitter a couple of weeks ago of what it looks like in the glass, and you can see the yeast floating in it. And apparently whoever runs their Twitter doesn't know anything about beer because they commented because I tagged him, and they're like, "What is that?" I'm like, "This is your beer. You realize that, right?" So I just thought that was funny.
Well, the PR people may not be the same people as the ones actually doing the brewing.
Right, exactly.
Mitch, you got any beers you want to go through?
Not this week, unfortunately. I didn't get a chance to get to some new ones, but I actually will be on Tuesday. I'm really excited, so I will definitely share next week.
I should mention, no show next week. Both Matt and I are away, but we are going to have a big show the week after. We are going to do the show is going to be on at a different time so that we can get quite a few different people on. So it's going to be late evening Pacific time, probably around about midnight, so early morning here. And we're going to have a few people on. We're going to do a deep dive into Red Dead 2. Now,
I'll probably just be drunk in the background and with my mic muted, so I don't interrupt
just
you guys.
just move every once in a while. Just nod, nod and shake your head every now and then. Julian, do you have any beers you want to talk about? Are you a beer drinker or a cider drinker or anything? You may be teetotal and just came on here to talk about video games, and this could all be a load of nonsense for you.
I mean, actually, historically, yeah, I was never really a drinker, but it's ironic you asked that question because I've been super busy lately, but I actually recently started getting into, I discovered through a friend, Blue Moon, and that has now, I think, for the foreseeable future is probably going to be my beer of choice. Had a really good experience with it compared to some of the other ones.
Good choice, sir. Good choice. It's a very Midwesty kind of beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you took saying Midwest. I showed beforehand. I found this, which is a Virginia IPA, whatever the hell one of those is. But Burkhoff was giving me shit last time for always having the same things on the show, so I picked up something totally different. Right, rumors. Matt, do you want to go?
You want me to start with the rumors?
Yeah.
So I've heard from some very reliable sources that there's a new streaming service that's going to be coming out on the internet that you can use. It's very much like Twitch and Mixer. It's going to be called Ninja Vision, and it requires that you use a filter that changes your hair to blue. So I think it's going to be the next big thing. I'm excited to see what happens.
I think it could be big.
Like,
I think it could be
it could be like $100 million big. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's doable. It's an actual doable thing.
It could work. With all the money that he may get paid, he may end up owning his own streaming service.
Yeah.
Mitch, rumor?
Actually, mine's in the same kind of boat. Okay, so so my rumor, my source, he's fully recovered now, so he's all good. He's actually on vacation. He shot me a message. He had some beers on the beach. It was great. It's beautiful shots. Anyways, so he let me know that the whole reason Ninja went to Mixer was that Ninja actually was dating someone on Twitch, a head executive, and there was a really bad breakup. And so he's like, I can't stay on the service with this girl here, so I need to go to a new service. So he has left Twitch to go to Mixer because of a bad breakup.
It's good to know.
Not like he's married or anything.
I'm just sending out a quick tweet because Matt, in his tardiness, didn't think. Julian, have you got any rumors you want to share with the world, the one viewer that we've got at the moment?
None today. Nothing on the rumor mill today.
All
right. Okay, so here we go. I've heard a rumor that Jared the TriCaster operator is none other than star of Supernatural, Jared Padalecki. So the filming of Supernatural came to an end. He was looking for a new opportunity, wanted to do something totally different. And now he does the TriCast operating for GameFace in the shower room. Some say that he does the TriCasting only in a towel.
Oh, Shane should take this idea. This is brilliant. They should be doing who's in the shower and just find any famous Jared and just going, this week it's Jared. I don't know another famous Jared at the top of my head, but yeah, they would just post their picture right inside the shower.
Sadly, the only famous Jared I can think of is Subway Jared.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
For not the best of reasons.
I only know who that is from playing South Park. Butthole.
Nice.
Otherwise, I wouldn't know who the hell you were talking about.
He makes a great cameo in that one.
Right. Topic. So we're going to be talking about video game pricing for the next however long until I get bored. So Keep it interesting, peeps. Julian, do you want to, you suggested this as a topic, so do you want to introduce it? It's like your initial thoughts.
Yeah, sure. So, the topic of video game pricing, it's something I've extensively researched for years, and it's an incredibly complicated conversation because even just to start, all the different regions have different pricing. Pricing has gone up in places like Canada, and, a lot of it is based on what the currency of different regions is. So in certain regions, if your currency goes down in value, games go up in price. So because of that, in a lot of regions, it's a really complicated conversation. So typically myself, when I talk about video game pricing, I always do it with the caveat of the US, because because the dollar has never yielded in value, the US dollar in parallel to video games has been $60, I think, for 20 something. I mean, I think officially it was 50, and in the 360 generation it was 59.99 officially. But it's been, relatively speaking, $60 for a video game for a long period of time. So I think it's really interesting when you look at how much more games cost to make, marketing, and all of these things. When you look at how consistently pricing for video games in the United States has stayed the same, when you compare that to movie tickets, concerts, sporting events, any entertainment, or even just products in general, it's the only product that has remained at its price, for a number of years. And in now this case, decades, it stayed relatively around the same price. And in a lot of ways, it's the cheapest it's ever been. So, I think that is a really fascinating thing. And when you look at the video game business, you look at microtransactions and loot boxes, you look at where the industry is going, and you can see in so many different ways that it all is coming from the fact that prices haven't gone up and that they can't really raise them necessarily. So they're finding all these alternative means to make up the difference, to keep up with what would have been if games had been rising with inflation like every other product.
Yeah,
Can I
it's
start the
interesting.
discourse? So is it just a quick clarification before Mitch jumps in. So the pricing fluctuation in other territories, the point that you're making about the US dollar, it goes back to a phrase that I was told, which is, it's our greenback, but it's your problem.
Exactly.
So basically, the dollar is used in international currency as the benchmarking currency. So whilst the value of other currency changes, including the dollar is used as a benchmark.
Exactly.
So and I remember, God knows how many episodes of Pact a Factor ago, when the pound was actually really strong, unlike it is now because it's through the fucking floor. Thanks Brexit. It was really good in terms of the UK market, because companies didn't actually have to sell that many games here to make the equivalent value that they would have to make by selling games in the States. Because the pound was so strong, when you actually did the conversion, they were making, from selling a game at £45, they were making $64. But since then, I am waiting for a price hike, because like you were saying, Julian, the price of the value of the pound has gone down so significantly. I can see easily a £5 increase coming probably next year. Sorry, Mitch, I stood on your statement, so go for it.
No, it's fine. I just I guess I mean, you come from a different perspective, McWomble, because you got the pound, pounding at the pound, but for my perspective, obviously, is from the U.S. perspective. I think it's interesting. I think that price of games is the conversation of price of games going to increase in the next generation. I'm not really sure. Yes, game development costs have gone up, but at the same time, there's more consoles that have been sold out into the market than ever before. So therefore, there are more people able to buy those games, could offset those costs and make relatively the same amount of profits, if not more profits, in certain games and certain aspects. And I think you make an interesting point in regards to, we play games, and some games offer experiences that are longer than a concert experience, longer than a movie experience, longer than like any kind of entertainment experience. Some of these games can last forever if you want them to, and some of these, even if they're a story plot point game, it can last up to 40 hours. Like an example, I'm playing Fire Emblem Three Houses right now, and I'm at about 30 hours in that game, and that has 3 different main characters you can work with, that has 3 different storylines. So that's potentially over 120 hours worth of gaming within just that one game, and I paid $50 for it. So I think the interesting proponent of it is, if they increase the price of games, I think it would hurt the market of games rather than help the market, because it's not like one publisher makes just one game. A publisher can make a bunch of games. Like an example, EA, they come out with multiple different games. That's their Maddens, that's their FIFAs, that's their NHLs, and then they also have stuff like from BioWare as well. And so if they put the price up for now, yeah, until they run it to the ground, but when they eventually, if they hiked up the price, they would kill their own market by saying, hey, now I can only buy 1 of these games instead of buying 3 of these games, and only contribute to one portion of the market than to multiple portions of the market. So I think the prices will stay the same. And I think the other interesting thing that I'm bringing up 2 different points, but another interesting thing I looked up and I didn't think about, when I bought Fire Emblem, it was $50. And I was like, wait, when was Switch games $50? And then I looked back and I was like, wait, all games from the Switch were $50. This is really strange. And so I just looked up Super Mario Odyssey just to triple check my info, and it was $50. So I was like, whoa, like, what is going on? Am I missing something? So I just think it's really interesting. It made me super feel like the purchase was even more worth it when I valued it at the $50 mark than I valued it at the $60 mark, because I valued them the same. But somehow when I saw it was $50, I was like, oh, I'm for sure going to buy this now because it's $10 cheaper.
Can I call bullshit on something?
No.
Okay, I'm going to anyway. So all this bollocks that came out and say, oh yeah, once digital games are going to be cheaper. No, they're fucking not. They're exactly the same price. So sorry, I wasn't going to swallow that lie that people were trying to peddle. That, oh yeah, we'll move to a digital marketplace and we can sell you the games for cheaper because we're cutting out retailers and we don't have to print on physical discs, and we don't have to package them and ship them. And so it totally undermines what we're being told about a shift to all digital. And Matt and I, in the very first episode, do you remember that one? That was a good one. There was the line that said, if we move to a digital marketplace, things are going to get cheaper. Well, that hasn't played out. So don't fucking try and peddle that bollocks to me. Thank you very much. There's the angry mood.
It was just another way for them to like come up with the excuse to suck up more profit from the game. But
exactly.
Go ahead.
Don't try and sell me a lie when I can see through that shit. All you are trying to do is maximize your profit margin. If that's the case, come out and be honest and say, actually, we are going to keep the prices the same because we need to maintain a relationship. But the problem we need to maintain a relationship with the retailers. We don't want to cut them off because we need to sell new consoles, and selling consoles through digital space is harder than it is through brick and mortar. Mm-hmm. But that's a hard message to sell. So what do? You get PR and marketing people and come in and say, well, if you go all digital, it's going to be cheaper, isn't it?
Well, and you could have spun that to say, hey, like if you want to help your company, that you want to help out the game you love and help the publisher that the game developer that made that game, buy it online instead, because they're going to get more of the profit, which means they're going to be able to make another one sooner than later. That's another way they could have spun it and fed off that. But I agree. Basically, we just need to hire McWomble because he's a McWomble bullshit meter. So if it passes the McWomble bullshit meter, we're good.
Yeah.
You were going to say something, Burkoff, and I cut you off. So go ahead.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Okay, moving on.
No, I think arguably the price of games has gone down just based on the fact that we do have inflation, and the actual dollar price hasn't changed. So in that regard, it has gone down because what used to cost you $60 10 years ago. You're not able to buy the same things for that same $60 except for video games these days, right? So I think that we should take that into consideration. The digital argument,
and again, I know you guys are viewing this from a particular region perspective, so I want to get onto something that Julian brought up, which is regional pricing structures, because for you guys, pricing in effect hasn't changed, but for lots of other areas it's got more expensive. So I've noticed that not just some physical games are more expensive here, so and that may be linked to the value of the currency, but I'm not sure. So there is differentiated pricing. So some things are $44.99, some are $49.99. And there's no.
Evan Piotrowski mentioned something to me. We had a conversation a while back when Persona 5 came out, and yeah, he got it early, but he was like, dude, that game was like $80 American dollars. Like if you did the math, and he's like, they determine how much the game is going to cost when it comes there. So I can understand Evan's viewpoint whenever I talk to Evan, and he's always like, if I say like, oh yeah, this game's worth like $30, and he's like, yeah, I rather just it's like worth $10 to me. His value of what a game is price wise is completely different from mine because of the perspective of he pays $80, might have to pay $80 for a game. So, and Evan's I've learned he's a cheapo because of that. So he definitely talks about a lot how he wants to get the games on the cheap. And so if it's like $10, he's like, this is worth every penny.
Unless it's from Yakuza Studios when it's like first day.
He'll pay $250 freaking dollars for that thing. Let's be honest. Which then he's gonna rat on me on Twitter. Bring it.
I mean, I don't know. I can remember games back in the Super Nintendo era costing, $75 or $80 brand new.
$90 in some cases.
Yeah, that was a thing,
I mean, I guess when I grew up I'm used to the $50 game, and then this transition to the 60. That's what I grew up on. So I don't actually PS1. How much were PS1 games? Weren't they like $40?
Yeah, 40 or 50 usually.
Okay, so I grew up on the structure of since the PlayStation 1 era with the 40, 50, now $60.
Well, according to a certain YouTube channel, there were no games before the PlayStation 1.
Whose YouTube channel?
Hello, you've caught me thinking about Fridays. I'm going to start imitating that as a.
You need the glasses, and you need to try to get on a show and just you two together.
Yeah, and shave my head. Something that I wanted to bring up when Julian mentioned the topic in our Discord channel. Join the Discord channel. There's another one. Idiot. Is pre-orders and special editions. So Matt is obviously going to have to, because of his psychological programming, buy the special edition of Final Fantasy VII, the $300 one with the statue thing of Cloud in it on the bike.
I wanted that one too.
If he doesn't, the headaches will start. And
but visually doesn't see it; it causes pain.
But I know these are becoming different editions and special editions and gold editions and ultimate special gold editions are becoming
Deluxe
more
digital edition.
Yeah, they're becoming more and more prevalent. And one thing that I've noticed, and I'll ask Julian to weigh in on this first, is that through this, I perceive there to be an erosion of content, so that you can actually carve out things so that you can put it into another price bracket. Do you kind of see things the same way I do, or have you invested in any special editions or digital deluxe? I know I have, and then regretted it.
That's for me?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think the only collector's special edition item I think I've ever had was in high school. My mom bought me Bully the week it came out, and with the store we went to, I think it was a GameStop in the mall or whatever, they only had one copy left, and it was like the special edition, the collector's edition of Bully that came with like a textbook and a kickball, and it had like the Bully logo and the Rockstar logo on the kickball. So yeah, in my life, I think that's the only collector's edition item I've ever had. And then in terms of like modern day, because now I typically get most of my games digitally, I don't think I've ever gotten any. I think Red Dead 2 is the one I came close to getting the Ultimate Edition. I thought about it for Red Dead. But yeah, I typically don't do special editions for games. I'm much more like video or anything else. I prefer the a la carte approach where it's like I can clearly see delineated what is everything, and I pick what I want myself, rather than paying some markup charge that includes all these items that I may or may not care about.
I have a question for you since we're on the topic. Do you think is it ever tempting for yourself, because sometimes they'll do, hey, you'll upgrade to the digital edition, the deluxe edition, if you pre-order. Does that ever tempt you to pre-order a game?
Up to this point, no.
Okay.
But again, typically, I mean, a lot of that comes down to more so it's about, I mean, with pre-ordering and any of those things in general, it's about how much of a desire is there for me to play a game to begin with on day one. And there typically at this point, for me, there's not a ton of games where and I feel like for a lot of people, there's not that urge. There's not that day one urge. There are fewer games command that day one urgency. So the last game like that for me was probably, I mean, of course, Mortal Kombat 11 this year and Metro Exodus. Like those two games I knew months leading up to, years leading up to, in the case of Metro, that I was going to get those games no matter what.
And so you pre-ordered both of them?
Exactly. And
I got burned with pre-ordering stuff.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way.
I was going to say, McWomble and Burkoff, what was the last game you pre-ordered?
The last game that I pre-ordered was Dishonored for the PS3.
Oh, wow.
Because you got the tarot card deck.
The tarot cards.
Yeah, and I was like, that's a cool add-on. So if there's little stuff like that, like physical items that they include with games, I might, because I like to have that stuff. But
this is kind of the point I was getting at. I mean, I have bought collector's editions, and I did get the Ultimate Edition of Red Dead, but I bought the physical one rather than the digital one. So you actually had the physical maps that came with it.
Oh, wow.
Then when I'd actually finished the game, it's like, am I ever going to look at these things again? No, trade that shit back in. But the ones that I do have is where there's actually something that I feel you've got and you can keep. So I got all three collector's editions of the Mass Effect trilogy. So you get art books, and you get the first edition of the Dark Horse comic in one of them. So you actually get something that flashes out the world a bit more. Whereas some of the things now is, what was I looking at the other? I was watching QuakeCon, and saying the pre-order bonus for Doom Eternal, you get a shotgun skin.
Right. What the hell? Why?
Some people love their shotguns.
And also that's something that can be, I mean, a lot of this conversation about Ultimate Editions and what comes in these packages, and that even though I'm not personally the market for these things traditionally, from their perspective, I get it. It's, especially now that everything has moved to digital, you have to be able to accommodate potentially millions of people who are going to be buying this thing physically and digitally. So you have to increasingly make things that you can offer to somebody digitally. If it's a physical item, then how do you sell a digital Ultimate Edition? You know, so it's like they have to do things that make sense for them to be able to go make, that are relatively painless to make, versus like for Red Dead Redemption 2, I have the collector's edition strategy guide, and it's gorgeous. But they would have never been able to include that thing in the Ultimate Edition of the game because of like the print and the illustration work. I mean, it's stunning. But they would have never been able to mass produce enough of those to put that in an Ultimate Edition of the game. So
Yeah.
you know that they pick things that they can easily accommodate people both digitally and physically, and that they can easily make a lot out.
Actually, I lied. The last thing that I pre-ordered was Mass Effect Andromeda.
Ooh. How'd that burn go?
Is it actually the scars are still there? It got so bad that I needed a self-help group of Matt and Evan.
Did it burn your trigger finger? Trigger finger's a little sticky a little bit.
No, this was talking about that for, what was it, about an hour and 40?
It was a lot. Yeah, it was probably about two or three hours.
It got so bad that we started a YouTube podcast talking about video games and beer. And I think the thing for me is this kind of perception of an erosion of wholeness. So, and like Gillian was saying, so if people want the a la carte menu, give them the opportunity. But the thing that irks me, I'm trying the Virginia IPA, by the way.
Mid-sentence.
Bit soapy. The thing that irks me is when you get this segregation of what could be the whole package. So if someone wants the a la carte option, give them the a la carte option. Don't say you can get this here and this here. And Jim Sterling, I really hate sounding like Jim Sterling so frequently on this goddamn show, but
you're the British Jim Sterling. That's just what you can call yourself.
I'm less fat and don't have a successful YouTube channel and don't wear a top hat and I'm not gay. But other than that, we're exactly the same. And I don't wrestle in spandex.
That we know of.
You can come back. But the way he was I can't remember what he was talking about. He said there was only something you could get with Tostitos. There was a game that had a Tostitos special, and if you didn't buy that, it wasn't actually available for anyone to buy. You had to buy X number of packets of Tostitos. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point. I think what I really loved about, I mean, obviously, Burkoff, and I've talked about this before, is I loved the remake of Resident Evil 2 that just came out this year. I thought it was a great game. But one of the most compelling things I noticed about it, which was really interesting, and now that we're talking about Olive Carts and those kinds of things, and talking about, well, if you're going to do those deluxe options, it's nice to at least offer them separately if you want to purchase them separately, and if you want to put them all together in the combo, you can do so. So like the example with Resident Evil 2, the remake they did this last year, is they offered alternative costumes, and so you could buy the deluxe edition that will give you those alternative costumes. You could get the alternative costumes, you would get the original sound effects and music from the original game, get to be played in game. But then if you didn't want all that stuff, which I didn't want all the costumes, but I ended up buying the original sound mix separately and just adding that to the game, which for me made the experience so much cooler because it was like playing this modern game with the old style music. I
didn't even realize they sold that separately. Wow.
Yes, if you love Resident Evil 2 and love the remake and have not played it with the original sound effects and original music, play it. It is so cool it does it so well. But anyways, just those menu sounds, they're like iconic, like the beep, beep, bump, bump, like they're just great. But anyways, I loved that because I didn't want to have to buy buy in to buy all the costumes for it. I just wanted to buy the music. And so offering me that option was great. And then on top of that, they said, well, all the rest of the DLC will be free. So that means the extra modes, all those kinds of things, and those would be free on top of it. So I think Resident Evil 2, in my opinion, based off our conversation, I think it's the best alternative that games should offer for consumers. It offers the option if you want all of it off the cuff right away.
It's quite confusing because that's Capcom.
Yeah.
And
Capcom's got their shit together.
You would expect them to try and rape you.
Oh my God. That was a really extreme term.
It's a hot take.
That's a hot take.
For your money, or they would expect you to try and do that to your bank account.
Yes.
Based on their past performances with Street Fighter.
Sure.
So, because I've never played a Resident Evil game and probably never will, I'll hand in my gamer card now. I don't care.
I was like, can't even touch any of them, McWelwell? Come on, I have 2 copies of Resident Evil 2. I'll ship one to you.
So it again kind of link. This is quite a good conversation if I could actually string a fucking sentence together. Because linking that through, why is one company's policy for charging on one game so bad compared to its charging on another game? I don't get it.
Yeah,
I mean, I can explain a little bit. I think I understand this a little bit.
Go, Insider.
I mean, what I've observed about this, particularly like Capcom's the easiest example of this, that a lot of it comes down to what they need a game to do. So in the case of Resident Evil 2 Remake, they recognize that game is going to reach a huge, wide audience. It's going to get critical acclaim, maybe win awards. That's their Oscar bait game for the year. So that game, and it's sold, enough units to validate that. They don't necessarily need to they don't necessarily need secondary revenue streams off of that game.
I know where you go.
Street Fighter, on the other hand,
you're going to gouge one sector.
Exactly. Street Fighter is, historically, it's a popular game. It reaches a wide audience, but relatively speaking, fighting games are niche. So, like, I have Street Fighter 5 on PC, and I have Ultra Street Fighter 4 on Xbox 360, which is backwards compatible. And for years, the way the amount they charge for skins, I remember back in the day, Mortal Kombat 9 for the Xbox 360 sold the season pass for $10. That was the first season pass I ever bought because it was so cheap. That was the price of one costume pack for Street Fighter 4 at the same time. So, because, Street Fighter doesn't reach as many people as some of their other games do and sell as many copies, they need to make more money off of that game, for shareholders and for other people. That's part of the initial investment when they're allocating a budget for those kind of games, as I understand it, is that we're going to spend this much on this game, even though it's not necessarily going to make it up in every case through units sold, but we have all these other secondary businesses attached to it, which makes up that cost, and it's healthy over years.
Yeah, and I think going with that example even more, to kind of even break it down even more, is that like you said, Resident Evil is going to be their Oscar baity one. That means it's going to hit all the headlines. That means it's going to get all the reviewers. And then that means that's free marketing. That's instant, great free marketing for that game to say, this is an excellent game. Go play this game. Next review. This is an excellent game. Go play this game. Where compared to Street Fighter, not everyone may be reviewing that game. Even though they may say it's an excellent game, go play this game. They're not getting the marketing push as much as they would if they had an Oscar baity. Honestly, we should just call it Game of the Year Oscar, Game of the Year baity, Game of the Year baity type of game. But because that's not happening, they don't have to spend as much on marketing for Resident Evil 2. So therefore, they're making tons of more profits off of that game compared to where Street Fighter, they have to push a lot of marketing in it. They got to push it in Evo. They got to push it in all these areas of games, and that costs money. And that costs a lot. I would not be surprised if it costs more to push a game like Street Fighter 5 because of its like in the example of this kind of game where it's an Evo, since Evo's going on right now, I'm just using that example of it's an Evo event type game. It also is a niche game with a niche market.
But they've invented that for themselves with the Capcom World Tour.
Sorry, say that again.
They've invented that for themselves, having the Capcom World Tour to culminate at Evo.
Exactly. And so for them, they have to put money towards that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're spending more money on a game like Street Fighter 5 with marketing, development, all that compared to what they're spending on Resident Evil 2 remake. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. Just because of the long term. And so obviously they got to find ways to bring in that cash. But at the same time, I guess, isn't Street Fighter 5, you can still buy that skin, and it's kind of still in an a la carte style. So you still have the freedom of choice. It's not like a deluxe edition where, I guess the example I'm thinking of is, we can think of the new Final Fantasy VII Remake has that exclusive motorcycle that you're never going to get if you don't buy that edition. Unless, obviously, someone sells it on the side, but that could be an Eddie case. But is that enticing enough to get people to buy a deluxe edition, or would people, the question is, will people buy that motorcycle on the side by itself and then buy the game separately if they offered that a la carte style?
Probably not. Matt, you were leaning back, smiling, and then kind of looked slightly pensive, like you wanted to talk. So
he's soaked in the Final Fantasy and he got starstruck.
Well, for the record, I have not pre-ordered Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Because it's probably sold out. Probably sold out within 2 seconds. Literally,
is that because
done?
Is that because the programming made you kill someone for their pre-order?
No.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say I would. I may consider buying the bike separately if it were an option.
How much are you willing to drop for it?
$4,000.
$25.
Because they're gonna put it up there for like hundreds, if not 1,000. I could guarantee someone's gonna put $1,000 on that thing.
Well, because it's gonna be limited, right? They're only gonna make so many.
Exactly.
But yeah, if that was just an item that they made that you could just go pick up at the store.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I might pay $25 to have it, in my cubicle at work.
$25.
Yeah. You laugh.
The edition costs $300.
Well, you laugh.
But yeah, I'll pay $25
because like right now I can go to Best Buy down the street from my house and I can get they still have the collector's editions of Mass Effect Andromeda with the ships, and those right now are like $20.
Oh, nice.
But that game bombed, So.
Yeah, not nice.
Getting back onto Capcom, because they've done. Yeah, this is the Capcom ruined the taste of my beer. Because they've done some. They did the deal with Red Bull. So they don't Capcom, don't come to me. So don't knock on my door and say I actually need you to buy my season pass, because I know you've done a deal with Red Bull and Red Bull are giving you a shit ton of money. I don't know how many truckloads of money makes up a shit ton, but they've paid you to leverage in more people to buy skins. And I'm seeing that now because Red Bull are sponsoring some fighters in the Capcom World Tour, and they always fight in the Red Bull skin. Is it Bonchan? I think it's Bonchan. Who I've seen fight.
I don't know. I don't play it. It's not my cup of tea.
So whenever he fights, he always fights in the Red Bull skins of whatever character he's buying. So there's sponsorship and marketing deals going on behind the scenes that makes me think that we don't need some of this aggressive push for additional monetization.
But is this really affecting your game experience with the game? It's a skin. Yes. It's not changing the entire game.
It is affecting it. I'm absolutely 100% behind Jim Sterling on this one.
Are you being forced
to... It absolutely does affect people's gameplay. And the example of that is Fortnite. So it's a free-to-play game, but you end up in situations where kids are getting bullied and getting called defaults and no skins, because they haven't been buying the battle passes to get additional skins for games. So no, the thing is, it's just cosmetic. It's bollocks.
But that's not the game causing the problem. That's other people calling other people names.
No, No,
And
that's correlation, not causation.
I mean,
The
kids are gonna be
causation-
kids, right?
No, the causation is because the element is in the game. If that element wasn't there, you wouldn't have the associated bullying for people not spending the money. So that's the causation. What you're talking about is correlation.
Yeah, but Julian,
There is no but. Sorry.
there is a but. I totally disagree with you, but that's just where I'm at. I don't think the game causes it. I think the kid causes. It's you can't blame
that's correlation.
You can't blame
the causation is the correlation. The causation is the mechanic. The mechanic is spending. So if you don't have the spend mechanic, you don't have the associated reaction.
But you can still earn it in game. Yes, does it take longer?
Bollocks, though.
But you can.
Because I've been playing this fucking game.
Oh no, I've been playing Fortnite too, and I have basic skin stuff. And
but that's because we're older and slightly more intelligent than most people.
People are stupid. Remember?
People are stupid. Remember that. But I've been playing a bit of Apex Legends, and I've won a couple of matches. One I got absolutely carried. I mean, I was fucking awful. But the second one I played pretty well. Got 5 kills. But oh my god, how slowly you accrue in-game currency is just insane. I mean, literally, it would take me probably 2 months of playing that game every day to be able to earn enough in-game currency to buy a new character.
How many hours do you have in the game total right now?
15, 16.
Okay. And that's cost you 0.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
Yeah, but
see...
that's me. You're putting your own bias on this, and that's the whole point. The whole point isn't to put your bias on it; it's to put the publisher's bias on it, which is we're here to try and encourage people to spend money.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Well, I don't know.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, we're kind of talking about. We started.
I knew we'd get onto free to play at some point.
Yeah, we started with the $60, standard pricing, at least in the U.S. Obviously, it's different around the world.
There is a rest of the world. When did that happen?
But yeah, like with the free to play stuff,
it's obviously a mistake.
There might be, but no, like with $60 games. There was the argument, I think, after it got standardized towards the end of the last generation, the 360 PS3 generation, where there was sort of an argument. It's like, well, is there a dollar to hour quotient, and if so, does that add value to the game? And I think that that carries over to like the free to play model, because if you can get a good amount of enjoyment out of a game for a certain amount of time, does it make sense to then spend on the additional stuff, because you're supporting the developer, you're getting additional things to continue.
You're drinking the fucking Kool-Aid, my friend.
No, I mean, I don't know. I've spent money on Counter-Strike. I've spent money on Paladins, I think it makes sense because I've got enjoyment.
If it's an indie game and it's free to play, you're supporting the developer. If it's published by a publishing company like EA or Activision Blizzard, you are not supporting the developer.
Well, Respawn's a unique case though too, because that Vince Zampella went into those negotiations before he let EA buy his company.
Well, of course I know, because me and Vince are like this.
But I don't know, Julian. What are your thoughts?
Yeah,
I'll pass it to him.
Say Julian way on this.
I mean, even when I initially suggested this in the Discord, I mean, pricing it's an incredibly nuanced conversation. But specific to free to play games, to the argument you guys were having before, definitely with free-to-play games, like using Fortnite as an easy example, it's absolutely designed to incentivize. And of course, when they made the game, they couldn't have foreseen that kids would make fun of other kids for having default skins. But even, they understood, that there would be a sense of progression, that, people would play the game, they would want cooler items to earn. Even in a paid game like Overwatch, it's a similar kind of design. You have the standard skins, you have things you can get out of loot boxes, but then they have these amazing items that are only in the loot boxes. Like, they had the anniversary event a couple of weeks ago, and they had some pretty cool skins in there. But it's like, I'm looking at it, and it's like, I'm not going to, sink 50, 60, whatever amount of dollars to hope I get this item. But that it's designed with that sense of progression in mind. And definitely in the case of Fortnite, with free-to-play games, it's even more so, because the initial starting barrier is 0. You have to make concessions to ensure you make your money back on whatever you invested in that game. So you, as many ways as possible, you have to incentivize people to spend money. And if anything, that when Apex Legends first came out, that might have been one of its, weaknesses, is that it didn't have enough other items that incentivize people to want to spend money, which is a really good game. But because of that, it probably didn't make as much as something like Fortnite, which as soon as it, came out with Battle Royale, they had so much content and so many things you could earn through playing, and so many things you could earn by, buying the V-Bucks or whatever. Initially, that is very successful for them and has been very successful now for years. It's like the concept of a treadmill. You need things for people to earn, you need things for people to buy. And if you don't have those things, there's plenty of examples, Apex Legends being one of the most recent, that just simply putting out a good game that happens to be free is not enough to engender people to want to spend money. You have to incentivize them through a variety of different things, whether that's products, whether that in mobile games or MOBAs or whatever, whether it's pay to win. You have to give people a reason to want to spend money, specifically when it's free, because you have to go make back whatever you invested in that game.
And I think you made a great point. I think to add on top of that is that,
can we have someone stupid and unintelligent come on this show rather than Julian, who's kind of seemingly informed and enlightened?
No idea. But I think the thing to add on to is that what you're getting out of the example of Fortnite is not only are you putting your money towards it, and not only do you have those things that are achievable, to those things that, like you said, the example of the treadmill, and saying, hey, you always have something you're moving towards. But not only that, the game is constantly changing, and in a very exponential rate. The game itself is constantly changing more than any other game that we play on any of our platforms that we pay $60 for. So yes, people are putting their money for these cosmetics, but what you also are getting out of the experience is a constantly evolving and changing game, which is something we really don't. I think the next biggest thing we've experienced of this is something like World of Warcraft, where you put your money in and then the world evolves and changes throughout that experience. So I think that also makes it a little different. And this is also the reason why Apex Legends has gotten some heat, especially at E3, when they're like, oh, these changes aren't enough. There's not enough constant change, because they're so used to Fortnite constantly changing in that environment of going, oh, we completely changed this landscape. It's now an ice fortress. Oh, this week it's going to be all Avengers heroes. Like, they have constant things they can change. Fortunate enough, the game looks really cheap production value wise. So constant
things to change so that they can constantly keep monetizing it.
But if you're putting your if you put $60 in a game, you are not going to get something that potentially is going to change as much consistently as something like a Fortnite. And so it depends on how much. So, but people that put in their money in it are putting whatever the money they put into that game. For them, they have to justify the value they're getting out of it. But for the people that are doing this for free, they're getting a free game that constantly is changing around them, that they, even though they're incentivized to say, hey, you should get that cool skin, you should get that cool parasail or paraglider, you should get that cool hammer. Like,
buy the battle pass.
Yeah, buy the battle pass is basically what they're trying to say. But you don't have to. And the game is still going to constantly change around you, because, other people are doing so because they find that it's valuable to them to do so. So I think, like we've said earlier today, it's a value is a perceptional thing by an individual person, and each of us value something different. Like my example with Evan values a game different price wise than I valued a certain game price wise.
And I value I value games differently to my friend who plays Fortnite, not quite obsessively, but near enough. But for him, playing a free-to-play game and spending £15 on a battle pass for a game that he can get hundreds and hundreds of hours of free content out of is a significant thing for him, because he doesn't earn loads of money, so he can't do things like buy a $300 version of Final Fantasy VII Remake. So it comes back to a bit what we were talking about last week. What is the value proposition? So the next obvious way for us to go in this conversation is, what does streaming do?
Okay,
Julian, what does streaming do in terms of pricing for games?
I mean, I think initially using Google Stadia as the poster child for this, I think initially it will just continue as it has already gone. I mean, with Stadia, games are still going to cost. You pay the same amount you would on any other platform. It's $59.99. So I think initially it will continue to do what it's always done. But I think over time, you'll start to see something closer to what Call of Duty did with this past version. It started at 50 or 60 bucks or whatever, and then eventually, for a limited time in that case, it was free. So I imagine in the future, what streaming will allow companies to do is try, whether it's the killer instinct model where it's initially free and you start with a handful of characters, and then if you want all the characters, you pay 20 bucks or 30 bucks or whatever. It's like finding different entry points that reflect or that are reflected in what you ultimately pay for the end product. I imagine would be the future of pricing with streaming. That if you're someone who knows what you're like, let's use Assassin's Creed as an example, since that's what they showed on the Stadia stage. If you're someone who's never played a video game before, maybe you just want to get your feet wet with this, see what this is, see if you like it. Maybe the price for that person is 10 bucks. You come in, you get to the initial onboarding, the tutorials, you play the first couple of quests or whatever, and that's 10 bucks. And then if you really get into the game, you get into the game heavily, you do everything, then there's a rising scale, and maybe you pay 30, 40, 50, 60, it goes up. But I think that is so much of the battle this generation especially, is figuring out different entry points. Hitman 2016 did the episodic content. Yeah. Hitman 2, is now giving you, I think you can play the first 2 levels for free. So everything is about it's about the entry point more so than the exit point. Because it's like you need to get people into the door, and so many games are now doing that by making it free, whether that's Fortnite.
See, this shit worries me, and it goes back to what I was saying before. It's like, why make a whole game when you can just make 2 levels?
Yeah, but would you spend $30 to play the latest Call of Duty campaign? Like, that's what you're going to play with that game anyway, right? You're not going to play multiplayer or zombies or anything?
Sorry, I was wondering if that was a rhetorical question or an actual question.
No, I think for this kind of campaign, since they're kind of reimagining the modern warfare story, I might pay, if it's just as good as it was when that first game came out, that I might pay $30 for it. But I think the more compelling point that you made, Julian, was when you talked about streaming allows for people to test the game, and that could really open up a whole mindset. It's all about the entry point, and I think you're right on the spot on that, because an example I would use is I always felt compelled more to try a game out when PlayStation offered me to play the first hour for free. When they allowed me to play the first hour, and then they popped up after my first hour to say, hey, do you want to purchase this game? Or if not, you have to leave the game. I ended up actually enjoying a couple of them to go. It kind of allowed me to jump in with understanding of like, okay, well, it helped me in the process of a game that I'm not sold on initially, and going like, I really want to try this before I buy it, because there's GameFly, and I don't know if that's still running and operational wise, but there really isn't game rental stores anymore. So where is the opportunity to test out a game anymore to know I'm really enjoying this game? Like I remember going to Family Video as a kid, and my favorite part was not getting the movie at Family Video. No, my parents found me in the video game section, and they would go, "You get one game," and then I test out a game, and I play that thing all night long, and I figure out if I really like the game, and then sometimes I would say, "Hey, I actually really, really like this game. Can I get this for Christmas or something?" So I think there isn't much of demos anymore either. I don't think there's enough entry points to get people into games, and I think this is the way that game companies are now starting to do it, with offering free. Because
I don't know if this would be the interesting thing for me is, and this is where I'm slightly confused as to where Google have gone with this, because with their buying power, they could have gone to all of the publishers anywhere around the world and said, we will, if people sign up to our premium subscription service, we want to give them 5 hours of your game for free.
That's
or
compelling.
2 hours.
Well,
or
yeah,
1 hour.
I think it depends on the type of game, but yeah.
Yeah. So depending on, if you're looking at a 100-hour RPG as opposed to 10-hour shooter, so we'll give someone, I don't know, 10% of the length of the game for free if they pay up to some kind of monthly subscription charge. That I can see as being compelling, but they just didn't.
Well, I think also if they went into a games of streaming service where it was like a Netflix service, I think that would even help them even more in this case, because maybe they could have a section called like previews where you can preview a game. And then if you did want to buy it for $60, if it's not offered in the Netflix style subscription service, and maybe they offered still, you can buy games for $60 if you want to, and it'll be added to your like Stadia library, your Netflix library, it'd be added there. So you could test it before you play it. And if you wanted to buy it, if it's current, you can put it into your library. I think that's a way to go with what you were going with, McWomble, and the methods I think Google Stadia should have went, because Microsoft is pushing Game Pass so hard now that it's like, how are you not wanting to try to compete with that? Because right now, if your service is perfect for this type of media, like people assimilate streaming with Netflix, why would you not assimilate with that with a streaming for games Netflix service? Like, I just don't get how they don't get that correlation together. But no, I think that's how they could have done it all. But no, I agree. Some way to get someone in a jump entry point to start playing a game, you're more likely possibly to get. I wonder what the percentage is actually of like how many people jump into a game.
What's the onboarding?
Yeah. What's the percentage of how many people try it and then end up buying it? I really wonder what it is, and I wonder, is that the reason game demos are going away because it doesn't work? And the only reason these free to game services work is because the whole game is free. Technically it's free, but you can buy into services in the game.
I think that's a slightly different topic. Should we bank that one?
Bank it.
Bank it.
Are we weakest link? Goodbye. Bank. Start the clock.
So where are we on this? Have we talked round enough? And one thing I would just like to point out: this is the first time we've had a guest on who's actually verified as being a guest.
I think we did.
We've kind of covered pretty much every single base that we could,
I guess the only way we could end it in an aspect is like, as our prediction, do we think the games of price of games will, I guess we would say the US market, because that's the one that's more stagnant in the examples we've been talking about compared to other markets. Do we think the US market is going to increase another $10 going into this next generation? Because just like Julian mentioned in regards to game development, and I see your finger wiggling and trying to get a point, and I'm going to keep talking so you don't get to talk, but go ahead.
Or is the USA the cause of the problem by not inflating the cost of games
Do you think that would break down the cost for everyone else? Is that what you're trying to say?
No,
We're being greedy?
I don't, no, because we're dealing with capitalism here. It's not going to bring down the cost anywhere else. What are you talking about, crazy face? Is the fact that game costs haven't inflated in the US a barometer for then the need for additional monetization? Is kind of where is along the lines of where you were going. So
I guess where I was going at in regards is to, like, I was just trying to think about it and how many games do I buy a year at full price? And I was trying to think of how many do I buy, or how much money do I spend a year on video games? How drastic? I'm trying to think of if it increased by $10 and it went to 60, which is the reason why I wanted to bring it up to 70, which is the reason why I wanted to bring up the question, was because will that affect the way how many games I buy per year? And probably
with me, absolutely.
Yeah. So how many less games would I be buying per year if it went up to 70? And would game companies be willing to take that risk of having less people buy less games, even though they might get more profit for one game? Will that be worse? So, Burkhoff, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Well, I was agreeing with you. I mean, it would definitely, if the price increased to $70, it would limit the number of games that I buy per year. I think I do at least 4 games a year. It would probably drop it down to 3. I think we're probably going to stay at around a $60 base price for games, just because it's a lot easier to tack on shit at the end and get you to spend money in other ways, like, with Ultimate Team or whatever. Because if you're spending that much time in the game and you're getting that much value out of it, chances are you are going to be inclined to continue to spend money and invest in the game so that you get more out of it.
And technically, you don't have to buy it if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Exactly.
As long as, and it seems like these don't ruin the entire, McWomble would disagree with, it ruins the experience of not allowing it. But I think it doesn't change the core experience of the game. It's just something additional if you really wanted to invest in that game. And there are some people that feel like they want to invest in that game and that they want it, that be their 2 games a year they buy, and they really want to invest in those 2 games. There's an option for you to invest in those, and great for those publishers that get that money for it. But yeah, Julian, what do you think? Same question to you.
As a closing comment.
Yes.
I mean, I pretty much agree with everything. I absolutely think it will stay, at most maybe go up $5, but I don't even see that happening, because I think so much of this is predicated on perception and marketability, and just, in the same way that they show you when you see pricing, at least in the US, and I think in Europe they have a law that you have to show the exact pricing of certain things. In the US, everything
including
is $59.99.
Yeah.
Exactly. Seeing the lower number, I'm sure they have studies to show that psychologically shows that people are more, even if it's $1 less, if you see $59.99 versus $60, or $60 with tax included, $64, you're more predicated by it. So I absolutely think they will continue with the current way, which is, we make that money up on the back end through monetization versus raising prices. Because raising prices, it's a complicated conversation. And in some ways, this generation has kind of gotten to what I always wanted in terms of a sliding scale. Not so much for AAA games at retail, but you look at PUBG is $40. You have so many huge, high-quality free-to-play games now. I think Plague Tale Innocence is $50. So there's, to the scale this generation, there's been lots of games that have come out. Minecraft was $20. So, the pricing outside of the AAA space is very flexible at this point. I feel like that's why so many of those games have had so much success. Rocket League was $20. So I think because of that, I think they will stick with what works. I think raising prices is a larger conversation. They all have retail partners and the distribution chain and all these other things to take into consideration with that, and even other territories. So it's harder to, shake that boat and cause potential problems. It's so much easier and probably so much more lucrative to just rely on secondary revenue streams and your small dedicated audience of people who will spend tens of thousands of dollars. And that kind of works for everybody because it essentially acts as a subsidy. Like, you look at like Halo 5, they gave away all the DLC for free. Battlefield 5, all the DLC is free. The trade-off of that is, they have microtransactions, but in both of those games, I'm never going to spend any money. So I'm getting essentially what used to be a $40 season of map packs for free because someone else wants to go spend $1,000. So I think for the general consumer, I think that's the best outcome, is someone else subsidizes your entertainment. The money has to come from somewhere, but it's not coming from me. So
and I think the final thing I'll say from my end is I totally agree with you, and I think the thing that helps push your agreement of the $1 difference, like my example I said before, I expected to pay $60 for Fire Emblem Three Houses, and I saw it was for $50, and all of a sudden I was like, I'm in. Like, holy cow, I didn't even know if it was $50. So it changed my mindset about making that purchase as the consumer, that a $10 difference is a $10 difference. Even a dollar difference is a dollar difference. Go ahead, McWomble, you can finish it up.
I was just going to say that I see where Julian's coming from. I'm not entirely sure I agree with his appraisal of why we need additional monetization, but I like the fact that he did it in an intelligent and eloquent way. And I need to wrap, and I think we've talked around things, but I'd just like to say thank you to Julian for coming on. It's really good having you on. Really good conversation with you, Matt. You're asleep half the show.
I was just letting other people talk.
Well done. It's very magnanimous of you. I hope you had a good time, Julian. It'd be really good to have you back on.
Thank you guys so much for inviting me. I had a great time, and I would love to come back on.
All right, and on that note, guys, we're out.